The planet Carel 9 was once full of life and hope. Its purple sky stretched wide above the towering crystal forests, and rivers of glowing blue water ran deep through its valleys. But now, Carel 9 was a broken place. War had left it scarred and empty. The great cities lay in ruins. The air was thick with dust and sadness. Food was almost gone, and only a few survivors clung to life. Sila, a Karen mother, moved carefully through the rubble. Her skin was a deep violet, shining faintly under the dull light of the planet's fading sun. She was thin, but her eyes still burned with fierce determination. In her arms she held her baby, Tira, who was weak and crying softly. The little one's skin was pale, and his small body trembled from hunger. Sila had searched for days for any sign of food. The nutrient farms, once the pride of her people, were destroyed or poisoned. The cold wind cut through her clothes, but she could not stop. Her baby needed her. "Shh, Tira," she whispered. "We will find something soon. I promise." She looked up at the sky, hoping for a miracle. Not far from the ruined city, a human ship landed quietly. It was the Odyssey Wind, a small exploration vessel sent by the Galactic Accord. The humans had only recently joined the galaxy's Great Alliance, and many species did not fully trust them yet. They were new neighbors still learning the rules of this vast space. Lieutenant Marcus Hale was the one who stepped out first. He wore a silver-gray exosuit that helped him breathe in Carel 9's poisoned air. His dark hair was damp with sweat from the heat inside the suit. His eyes were sharp and full of curiosity. He was a former combat medic, but here, his mission was simple: find survivors and see if Carel 9 was still worth saving. Marcus moved carefully through the ruins, scanning for signs of life. He carried a small pack with medical supplies and rations just in case. His heart beat faster as he passed broken buildings and silent streets. The planet felt like a graveyard. Suddenly, he heard it, a faint sound that did not belong in the silence. A soft, almost broken cry. He stopped and listened. The cry came again, closer now. Marcus followed the sound until he reached the remains of an old nutrient dome. Inside he saw her, Sila. She sat on the ground, her body tired and weak. She held Tira close, trying to comfort him. The baby's eyes were half closed, and his small mouth opened and closed as he tried to cry. Sila looked up sharply as Marcus approached. Her eyes flashed with fear and anger. She did not know this stranger. She pulled Tira closer and stood slowly, trying to protect her child. Marcus raised his hands to show he meant no harm. He spoke softly, "I'm here to help." Sila's lips curled in a weak snarl. Her species had suffered many attacks. They had been used and betrayed before. Trust was a luxury she could not afford. Marcus carefully removed a small package from his pack. It was a ration pack, a simple meal for a hungry traveler. He set it down on the ground a short distance away and stepped back. The smell was strange and new to Sila. It was not like anything she had eaten before, but her baby stirred at the scent. Tira's small hands reached out, trembling. Sila looked at the food, then back at Marcus. Her mind raced with fear. Could this be poison? Or a trap? But her baby's weak cries were louder now. She made a choice. Slowly, she took a small piece and fed Tira. The baby's eyes brightened a little. He moved with more strength. He began to eat. Sila watched, her heart both heavy and hopeful. This human's food was strange, but it was life. Marcus smiled gently. "There is more," he said softly. "I want to help you." Sila nodded, but she was still wary. She had seen kindness before. She had seen it turn to cruelty. The two strangers stayed in the ruined dome that night. Marcus set up a small shelter with his portable gear. The cold wind howled outside, but inside, Tira was warmer, safer. Sila told Marcus about her people, about the war that had taken everything, about the promises broken by the Galactic Accord, about the hunger that no one seemed to care about. Marcus listened. He felt a deep sadness for this mother and her child. He thought about his own family back home, safe and full, "We will find a way," Marcus said quietly. Sela looked at him, unsure if she should believe a human. But for the first time in many days, she dared to hope. The sun was low in the sky, painting the broken city with long orange shadows. The ruins of Karel 9 whispered stories of lost glory and forgotten times. But inside the shattered nutrient dome, a small fire flickered, casting warm light on two very different beings. Lieutenant Marcus Hale sat cross-legged on the cold ground. His helmet lay beside him, and the soft hum of his suit's systems had quieted. Across from him, Sela watched her baby, Tira, now sleeping peacefully wrapped in a worn blanket Marcus had given her. The air was still and heavy with the smell of dust and ash. Outside, the wind carried faint echoes of distant storms. But inside, there was a fragile peace. Marcus had learned a lot in the past few hours. He learned that Sela was not just a desperate mother. She was a leader, once proud and strong, who carried the weight of her people's suffering. He listened as she spoke softly, in broken words translated by his AI drone, about the war that had destroyed her home. "The Threx came like fire," she said, voice trembling. "Our scouts were caught between. We tried to warn the council, but the accord they turned away left us to die." Marcus nodded slowly. He could feel the anger and pain in her words. He had seen similar stories before, on other planets and wars. But this one was different. This time he was here, and he could help. He opened his medical pack and pulled out a small device. "This can help," he said gently. "It will find what your people need." Sela looked at the machine with suspicion. She did not trust strange human tools. But when Marcus carefully placed a small sensor near Tira's arm, she said, "Nothing." The device beeped softly, then showed green lights. Marcus smiled. "The baby is weak, but strong enough to recover. He just needs time and food." Sela sighed, relief washing over her face. For the first time in many days, she dared to believe. Marcus stood and looked out the broken dome walls. The sky was darkening, but the stars were beginning to shine. Somewhere out there, the Odyssey wind waited. More help could come, but it would take time. "We cannot stay here," Marcus said. "This place is not safe. The storms will come. The ground may shift." Sela nodded. "We have nowhere else." Marcus thought for a moment. Then he reached into his pack and pulled out a small folded map. It showed a nearby valley, where some old research stations had been left untouched by the war. It was farther from the city, but it might have clean water and shelter. He pointed to the map. "We can go there. I can help you get there." Sela studied the map. The journey would be dangerous. The storms could be deadly, and there were creatures in the wild she did not know. But she looked at her baby again and knew she had no choice. "Lead the way," she said quietly. That night, Marcus prepared for the trip. He checked his suit, packed extra rations, and made sure his comms were working. Sela wrapped Tira in the blanket and tried to rest, but the baby cried softly in his sleep. Before dawn, they set out. Marcus led the way through broken streets, past collapsed buildings and twisted metal. The cold air bit at their skin and the ground shook slightly beneath their feet. Sela walked close behind, holding Tira carefully. She glanced at Marcus sometimes, watching him move confidently, like he belonged here. It was strange to feel safe beside a human, but she did. As they moved, Marcus told her stories of Earth, of green forests, wide oceans, and cities full of light. Sela smiled faintly. The human world sounded like a dream. After several hours, they reached the edge of the city. The valley spread out below, covered in strange plants glowing faintly in the moonlight. "This way," Marcus said, pointing to a narrow path that wound down the hillside. They climbed carefully. Suddenly, the ground trembled and dust fell from the cliffs. Tira stirred, crying out. Sela held him tightly and whispered calm words. Marcus looked up and saw dark clouds gathering fast. A storm was coming. "We must hurry," he shouted. They moved faster, but the wind picked up, howling through the valley like a wild beast. Rain began to fall, cold and heavy. Lightning cracked in the sky. Sela's heart pounded. If they did not find shelter soon, the baby might not survive. Just ahead, Marcus spotted the research station, a small building half buried in earth and vines. He ran to the door and pulled it open. Inside was dark but dry. He helped Sela inside, then started a small heater. The warmth spread quickly, and Tira's cries slowed. Sela sank to the floor, exhausted. Marcus gave her some water and more food. The baby nursed quietly, growing stronger by the minute. As the storm raged outside, the two strangers sat close. They were from different worlds, different lives, but in this moment they were united by one simple truth: the will to survive and the hope to save a child. Marcus looked at Sela. "We will find more," he promised. "Help is coming." Sela nodded, her eyes shining with new hope, and somewhere in the stars above, a human ship waited, ready to change the fate of Karel 9 forever. The cold storm outside the small research station did not stop for hours. The wind shook the walls and rain pounded the roof like a drum. But inside, Sela sat quietly, watching her baby Tira sleep peacefully for the first time in many days. The small heater filled the room with gentle warmth, chasing away the chill. Lieutenant Marcus Hale was busy setting up his equipment. He used a device to scan Tira's body, checking the baby's health. The readings were slow but steady. Tira was weak, but his chances were good. Sela had never seen anything like the human medical tools. She watched carefully as Marcus worked, his hands steady and sure. He did not rush. His calm made her feel safer. After the scan finished, Marcus turned to Sela. "Your baby's body is weak from hunger and cold," he said softly. "But if we give him good food and medicine, he can get stronger." Sela nodded. "We have no food, only hunger and pain." Marcus smiled kindly. "I have food, enough for now, and I will send for more." Sela looked at him with hope shining in her tired eyes. Marcus opened his pack and took out some rations. The food was light and easy to eat, made for travelers like him. He handed a small piece to Sela, showing her how to feed the baby. Slowly. Tira's eyes opened and focused on the food. He reached out with tiny hands and took a small bite. His face relaxed as the warmth of the food spread inside him. Sela helped him eat, her heart lifting a little. For the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of hope. As Tira ate, Marcus activated his AI drone. It was a small, floating orb that translated languages and recorded everything. Marcus needed to communicate with the Galactic Accord. He had to tell them what he had found. The drone hovered near Sela and began to translate their conversation. "Your people were abandoned," Marcus said gently. "But I promise, you are not forgotten." Sela's voice was soft, but strong. "The Accord does not care. They fought wars far away. We are left to die." Marcus shook his head. "Not anymore. I will send a message. Help will come." Sela looked around the dark room, her hope growing but mixed with fear. Could she trust this human? Could she trust anyone? The baby stirred, and she held him close. "If you lie, we will all die." "I don't lie," Marcus said simply. That night, they talked quietly by the firelight. Marcus learned about the Karen culture, their proud history, and the terrible war that tore their world apart. Sela told him how the Threx invaded, pushing the Karen into hiding, how the Galactic Accord had made deals with powerful species and left her people out, how famine and sickness had followed. Marcus felt a deep sadness, but he also felt a strong need to act. Early the next morning, Marcus sent a detailed report to the Galactic Accord. He uploaded the images and recordings from his drone. He told the story of Sela, Tira, and the starving Karen. The message was clear: one meal, one child, one choice. Back on the Odyssey Wind, the crew gathered around the screen. They watched the footage of the starving baby, the worn face of his mother, and the broken city around them. The images were hard to see but impossible to ignore. Captain Ramirez, the ship's leader, looked at Marcus. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "We can't just leave them," Marcus said. "Not after this." The crew agreed. They began preparing supplies, food, medicine, and equipment for rebuilding. The message spread beyond the ship. Through the Galactic Accord's networks, species across the galaxy saw the story. It was more than just a report. It was a call to action. Humans had a reputation for being strong and tough, but this story showed something else, a kindness and hope that could change worlds. Sela watched the stars from the small window of the research station. She held Tira close and whispered a prayer. "Maybe help will come," she said. And for the first time, she believed it. The message from Lieutenant Marcus Hale did not stay quiet for long. Across the galaxy, the story of the starving alien mother and her crying baby began to spread. It was a simple story, but powerful. A story of kindness in a time of despair. The Odyssey wind. Preparations were underway. The ship's crew worked quickly to load food supplies, medical kits, and tools that could help rebuild damaged homes. Engineers studied plans for new shelters that could withstand the harsh storms of Karel 9. Everyone understood that this was more than a mission. It was a promise. Captain Ramirez stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the thick glass. "This is what it means to be part of the Accord," she said softly. "To protect those who cannot protect themselves." News of the Karen plight reached other species in the Galactic Accord. Many had suffered wars and hardships themselves, and the story touched a deep place in their hearts. Soon, messages of support and offers to help arrived from many worlds. On Karel 9, Sela stayed in the small research station with Tira. She was stronger now, thanks to the food and medicine Marcus brought. The baby's cheeks were fuller, and his eyes were brighter. For the first time in weeks, she dared to imagine a future. One day, as the storm clouds parted and sunlight touched the broken land, a small communication device blinked with a message. It was from the Accord. "Help is coming," Marcus said, reading the message aloud. Sela's heart leapt. Hope was no longer just a dream. True to the promise, several days later, a convoy of ships arrived at Karel 9. They carried food, medicine, engineers, and workers. Unlike before, they came without weapons or soldiers. Their mission was to heal, not fight. Sela stood with Marcus as the first supplies were unloaded. The people around them were from many worlds, some tall and silver-skinned, others covered in feathers or scales. But all wore the same expression: determination to help. Children from nearby villages gathered to watch. Some had never seen humans or other aliens before. They whispered excitedly, eyes wide with wonder. Sela spoke to the crowd in her native tongue, using the translator device Marcus gave her. "This is a new beginning," she said. "We are not alone." The rebuilding began quickly. Engineers repaired water systems and built greenhouses to grow food again. Doctors treated the sick and taught local healers new methods. The barren land started to bloom. The story of the meal that saved Tira became a symbol. Artists painted murals of a human handing food to a starving baby. Poets wrote songs that spread through markets and spaceports. The moment reminded everyone why kindness mattered. Back on the Odyssey wind, Marcus received a message from an alien diplomat, a tall, calm figure named Lyrakel. "You fed one, but gave hope to millions," she said. "Your action has changed how many see humans. You remind us of what it means to care." Marcus smiled, humbled. "I only did what anyone should do." But Lyrakel shook her head. "You did more. You opened a door." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, leaders watched the news and began to reconsider their views on humans. Once seen as rough and self-interested, humans were now recognized as hopeful and kind. The idea of humanity became a new example for unity. On Karel 9, Sela and Marcus stood together on a hill overlooking the growing settlement. Tira ran ahead, laughing with other children. Sela turned to Marcus. "You gave us a chance." Marcus shook his head. "We gave each other a chance." The future was still uncertain, The galaxy held many challenges. But for the first time in a long time, the people of Karel 9 believed they could survive and thrive. And it all began with one meal. Years passed and Karel 9 began to heal. The once barren land was slowly transforming into a place of life and hope. Crystal forests grew back, rivers flowed clear and strong, and the skies shone brighter than they had in decades. The small settlement near the research station had become a thriving community, where Karen and humans worked side by side. Sela stood on a hill overlooking the new town. The wind played softly through her violet hair. Her face had softened, with time, but her eyes still held the strength that had carried her through the darkest days. Beside her stood Lieutenant Marcus Hale, now a captain, visiting the place he helped save. Between them ran Tira, no longer the weak baby she once cradled, but a strong and curious boy full of life. He laughed as he chased after a group of children playing near the edge of the forest. His bright eyes shone with wonder and joy. "It is amazing to see this place come back," Marcus said quietly. Sela smiled. "It is more than we dreamed. Our people can live again. We can build a future." Tira ran up to them, breathless. "Mother, Father Marcus, come see what I found." Sela chuckled softly. "Come, show us." The boy led them to a small building at the edge of town. It was a bright, clean structure filled with plants, books, and strange devices. A sign above the door read, "Karen Xenomedicine Institute." Inside, scientists from many species worked together, studying Karen biology and human medicine. Tira stood proudly next to a small holographic display, explaining a new healing technique he was learning. Marcus felt a deep pride. This was the real legacy of what had started with one simple meal. Back when he first found Ciela and Tira, he had only wanted to help a starving child. But that small act had grown into something much bigger. It had built trust between worlds and brought hope to those who had none. Sela placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You gave us more than food. You gave us hope. And that changes everything." Marcus shook his head. "No, we did this together." Years before, many had doubted the humans. Some saw them as rough and reckless. But here, among the stars and the broken, humans had shown kindness and strength. Karel 9 was proof. At the celebration marking the 10th year of the Great Renewal, many species gathered. They came from far and wide, not as soldiers or rulers, but as friends and helpers. Sela spoke to the crowd, her voice clear and strong. "We were lost and forgotten, but one human's meal gave us a chance to live. Together we will build a future where no one is left behind." The crowd cheered, their voices filling the valley. Marcus watched, humbled. He knew the journey was far from over. The galaxy was large, and many worlds still needed help. But here, on Karel 9, a new story was being written. One of hope, courage, and friendship. As the stars twinkled overhead, Marcus thought back to the day he first met Sela and Tira. That simple moment had changed everything. A starving alien mother, a crying baby, and one human who shared his meal. Sometimes, it took just one small choice to make a universe of difference.